just so it doesn't shift around. You don't need to go crazy with it. Basically during the pour at some point. Part two for the in-slab over here. So the first time we were out here, we had this completed, but you'll notice there is one change here. So this right here is a dry vent dedicated for this toilet. So you know, you could really go down the rabbit hole. I'll post a couple diagrams, but there is a way that meets code to where, like we had it last time, where this without this vent, where this fixture gets its air from this line, where this is also a drain that makes this a wet vent. So, but the thing is that wet venting is somewhat of a new thing. To be honest, inspectors really don't like it. Some of them don't understand it, and unless you really know what you're doing and can really explain exactly why it's okay, it's a little bit hard to get through the inspectors from my experience. Something else to note, these two vents now are dry, so they're rolled up at 45 degrees. However, something else that makes it confusing is if you ever look in the codes, it doesn't actually specify what to do with a wet vent, because at this location, the water's going, well, like I said, in the old setup, the toilet would suck air through here, but this fitting serves as a flow for a drain and also flow for air, so it's a wet vent. But the code doesn't actually say whether this fitting needs to be rolled up like these two fittings. The dry ones, you for sure need to roll them up, but the wet one, it actually doesn't say. So that's another point of contention where there is no clear consensus as to whether it should be flat like this or it should be rolled up. I believe, from what I've researched and all that it should be flat, but there isn't really anything in the code specifically that backs that up. So it's another thing that makes doing wet venting a little more complicated to basically get passed on the inspection. So anyways, that's why we added this, is so that everything would be kosher and there's no questions asked about whether we meet code. So we did a similar thing over here. You didn't see it last time, so that when we pour concrete here, this pipe is not directly touching the concrete. What it does is it helps this pipe be able to move slightly. Something to note on sinks. When we're doing our floor plan, we're going to measure, usually go off the cabinet plans. This case is the kitchen sink, so we're going to find out where the center of our sink cabinet is. And as you can see here, this is where the center of our sink is. You always want to offset your drain a little bit to the left or to the right, because when you're installing it, what you're going to have is when you do the trim plumbing, there's going to have a pipe coming out here, and then you're going to connect to pipe's going to come out here, and you're going to connect the P-trap to your drain. Well, if you have this pipe coming out in the same exact spot as your sink, your P-trap is only going to have one. It's going to have to be at a straight angle, and you're not going to have any flex. You're not going to have any flexibility to kind of move your P-trap around. So this is our 2-inch line for our kitchen sink. Everything's got a 1/4 inch per foot slope. This is our line up here. This has got a 1/4 inch per slope, our 3-inch line that goes to the rest of the building. So this is the part we didn't show yet. And I don't know if I explained this. This is a tub box. So this is going to be a shower. We have our 2-inch drain line for our shower. Then we have our dry vent, which is rolled up at 45 degrees. Now this pipe right here is going to be in this box. And so what's going to happen is when we pour the concrete, later on when we're putting the shower in, we're going to have a big hole in the ground with a pipe going into it. That's going to allow us the space we need to put a P-trap in and put the drain exactly where we need it to be, because we don't have that level of, we don't know exactly where the shower drain is going to be right now. It'd be too hard to figure that out. So what this box does, it leaves us a void in the concrete, so we can come back when we're actually installing the shower and put the drain in the exact place we want. So that's what this does. So this is our guest bathroom. So over here we have, that's the shower. This toilet right here, you'll notice that it actually is wet vented, okay? Because we have a toilet a shower, and a sink. When this toilet drains, it's going to need to suck some air in behind it. That's what this is for. Now, this is not a dry vent, it's a wet vent, because this is going to carry air for the toilet, but it's also going to carry the drain for this sink. So that makes this a wet vent. Like I mentioned earlier, there's really nothing to support in the code to support that this fitting can be flat. And so really you can install it flat, which I think in my opinion and from the research I've done is probably the proper way. But the problem is when you go to inspection, there really is no code that you can point to allowing this pipe that is actually a vent for this toilet to be flat. So it's kind of an interesting situation. You can always get away with doing a dedicated dry vent, but in this case, we were confident that the inspectors would let us do this, which is allowable. So there you go. And then at the end of the line here, you've got this 3-inch line. So another code, which I'll link to the code section, but every line, every drain line that's over 5 feet has got to have a clean out at the end. So obviously this line right here, this is probably 40 feet or so. This has got to have a clean out on the end of it. This line is less than 5 feet. All these other lines, luckily, are less than 5 feet, except for our sink. Our sink at some point is going to have a clean out on it. This one right here is a 3-inch pipe. It's going to end up coming out of the, there's going to be a little patio right here. In fact, this is going to be a little barbecue sink. And over here, once we pour our foundation, we're going to pour some concrete on the outside of the building. And there's going to be a little cap to cover this pipe. And so that will be a clean out for this line in case anything gets clogged. So yeah, we passed our inspection. So at this point, we're going to cover everything and bring our gravel and rebar in and get ready for concrete.